easily come together and which of the parts don't? So if you just sort of brought them together, you're not making them come together, you're just having something touching in the soles of your feet. Which are the parts that touch in the ball of your foot, the heel, the outer? So you're not interlacing at the moment, Mia. You're just basically sitting there and bringing the soles of your feet together. Oh. Does this tell you anything about how you stand? Where you like to take weight? Deanna's going, yes. What's it telling you, Deanna?
I would like to have more flexibility on, I can see on my ankles, the way that I use my ankles, the connection with or the lack of connection with my pelvis. So it's very noticeable.
So what parts touch easily? You know?
Just the little toe.
The little toe.
The little toe.
The little toe. Have a stand up. What part touches easily in standing?
The little toe.
Oh! Surely there can't be a relationship between that.
I know it's the extension. I know. And it's related to this pattern of extension.
Absolutely. But this simple thing of getting someone to put their soles of the feet together, this is what he understood. What? And this is the questions, you know, that have been intriguing me for years. What's he looking for? How does he understand about someone's organisation by looking at how they bring their soles of their feet together? So all of you, what are the parts that you bring together easily? Is it more the ball of your foot? Sorry?
Is there a formal name for this?
Interlacing fingers and toes, I think. Could be hands and feet, I can't remember. But it's in Amherst, yeah. So what are the bits that you have to work a little bit to bring them together? Is the one foot different to the other? Huh? Is it your big toes that would tend to be away from each other and the ball of your foot really touches? Or for some of you, it's the toes that touch more and not the ball of the foot. All of these are telling you about your organisation. And we want to feel that different, that we don't want to completely let go. Yeah? But just if I was, what are the bits that I would have to work harder to bring together? And what's the relationship between the knees there when more parts of the feet can feel each other? Not to go into your yoga where you've completely got your knees, which is what you were just saying, Anna, where you completely dropped, but that there's an engagement there and your feet can be together. So why do you think he used interlacing the toes? Brings everything together. Yeah. You've got to find more of your whole foot. So does it really matter if they're not all interlaced perfectly, but that you're getting that there's more contact? Do you know what I mean? That you're getting your foot organised into a position that you're taking weight through the whole ball of your foot, yeah, and your heel. And what's that got to do with our torso? So again, he started off and you were bringing your legs above your head. So we interlaced the toes, which is sort of going to bring more contact, hopefully, into the ball of the foot. He's interlaced your toes, and in this lesson, and he was showing how different people had really different ways of getting their feet together. So there were some people, remember, who were balanced right up on their shoulders to get their, did you see that guy? He had his weight way up on his shoulders to get his feet together. Other people had to lift their heads. What does this tell us about whether it's easier for me to move from this end or from this end? Something as simple as observing how someone does that. What's this telling us about where they can weight bear, where they can find this place? Okay. So did any of you notice that more of you could be on the ground by the end? Yeah? Okay. So if we think about the spine, so there's so many joints in the spine. So again, we know that wherever there's a lot of joints, there's a lot of mobility available. So if I had this as my spine and I had 2 joints in it, how much of a curve could I make? If they really opened a lot. What about if I put a few more joints in it? Where would it have more flexibility and more ability? So if I had a part here that knew how to move a lot, maybe that's where I'm going to shift my weight to, because I've got a bit of give in that point, and that's what I'm going to use. So you could think the guy who was doing it and really taking, that he understood something more about how this could take weight and let this get really light. What about if I was down more in the pelvis? This is where I tended to take more weight. I'm going to probably come from this end up. No? So that principle of wherever there is weight, that's where I'm going to shift to. But I have to find within that weight shift that there's enough there that I can keep moving my weight, that I'm not stuck on it, I'm not pressing or pushing that we've been talking about. So what we're trying to do all the time is distribute this through more and more parts of ourselves. So a lot of people, I won't talk, but you know, they've got their legs up, and he says, okay, so let your head lift. Let your head lift. What's that asking people to do? Or to maybe shift their weight. So what you'll find when people don't have a lot of mobility, you have to move them more through space. So if I've only got a few levers, I've usually got to do a bigger movement to get my hands to my feet. So if I've got my feet here and my hands are reaching and I don't have a lot of give through my middle, if I can lift this and make it shorter. So so then as you get longer and longer and more joints become available, you don't have to lift your head. So who was someone who had to lift their head? Yeah, Helen, do you want to come over here? Do you mind? And let's see what, first of all, do you mind? Yeah, just so Helen can be here. So first of all, let's look at how Helen gets the soles of her feet together. Yeah, just sitting. So how much of your foot touches? And you can see Helen's very much a big toe and none of this touches. Yeah? She's still got her heels together, but there's a lot on the outer part of her foot that doesn't touch. So if we got Helen up to standing, just quickly, sorry, Helen, where would we expect her weight to be? Yeah? More on her big toes. And what we're looking for is that this weight can be distributed across. That's you, Sue? Oh, that's you, Mia, with your weight on your big toes. Yeah. So let's lie down. So something has to be stopping this evenness, and it's going to be in the chest. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, the neck, the head, but especially the chest. Okay, so Helen, can you bring your legs above your chest? And how are you going to reach your hands to your feet to start to interlace them? So Helen must lift. No? She must lift her head to get there. Huh? So, and we'll guess she's going to be better on her big toes, isn't she? But this is just going to be like, how on earth would I bring those together? Huh? See that little weight shift she's doing to get around it? Now, my next question to you is just to do that, because it's asymmetrical. Now, what's happened to where your weight might shift on your back? Have you kept it middle, or is there something that Helen's understood that to have this is very different to this? There's going to be a different rotation of my pelvis, a different rotation of my shoulders. So can you feel there, Helen, that you're a little bit more to one side than the other? No, just don't move though, but just in your back. Maybe there's a little bit of asymmetry there, which we would expect. So if we were Helen and really tried to keep that symmetrical, and now lift your head, and you could see the effort that came in, and then go back. And let's see if doing this has got something to do with Helen being able to shift her weight a little bit one side. Now lift your head. Yeah? And this is all our ideas. Oh, I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. I've got to be in the middle, without realising that every time we do this little asymmetry, the opportunity there is to shift your weight a little bit left of your lumbar spine or a little bit right of your lumbar spine. No? That every habit, as I said the other day, when something's really easy, it's because every part of us is involved in the movement. And that's why when we come in and do it the other way, because we automatically don't include all of ourselves in the movement. We just stay in our habit and then try and swap it over. Okay, so Helen, just reach to your toes again. So we know she likes the big toes. So these little toes maybe would help Helen to feel there's something in her low back that could widen to bring these together. So even though she can't get them, what maybe could I add? Do your toes have to be together, or is there something you can just find a little bit of contact between them? That might be enough to start to open the hip joints, to give us more width through our middle. Now, feel when you're there, Helen, down you go again. So now you've got that. Take your hands away and come toward them. Do you have to lift your head now to come to you, bring your hands to your feet? Because she's given up some of these habitual patterns. By finding this way to get our fingers interlaced, our hands interlaced, and that we can, and you know, I don't expect this of you in the first lesson. You're doing it for the first time. But how do you go back and look for this sort of information? Why is it different for me to have this on top or this on top? What's the whole big bit? And as I gradually get these together, you know, so that now that's got more room because she's got width down here, because so it's like this. If I'm on my big toes, if you all go onto your big toes like Helen, if you can come up to standing, Helen. So you're more on your big toe. Yeah, like Mia will find this really easy to do. Yeah. So I'm on my big toes. My heels are lightly touching the ground, which is Helen. She's not really heavy. No, they were just lightly touching. Yeah. How am I going to bend forward with my weight on my big toes here? Can I have a real lightness in my spine? How much of my spine can be available to round? And then what happens if I just let myself have more of the ball of my foot on the ground? What's different? Can you feel it in your in your middle back? There you go, Mia. Huh? So that when I've only got a small base of support, I know I'm working harder to hold myself up in space. Yeah? Because how I'd know it wasn't working harder is I could be just on my big toe, but it was really free. It could shift its weight. Yeah? So there's nothing wrong with being on your big toe if you've still got weight shift. But the way Helen and Mia both stand is their big toes are pushing into the ground. So it's that whole same premise. They haven't got that ability to softly shift their weight across the base of support. So what are we doing here on the ground to generalise that? Huh? How many places can you take your weight? What is it about these movements of widening, that's not so much there? That for many of us is getting rid of a lot of these really habitual patterns in our middle, and that's why we need the playfulness and looking for the lightness and changing our orientation, all these strategies we use that let us get there. Because Helen would have still got a lot out of that lesson, I have no doubt. So it's not, she's still got a lot out of the lesson. But what's the lesson giving someone the opportunity to learn? So he started it off with all going side to side, always easiest to shift your weight. Yeah? And then he's come back to getting this plane, which requires the most organisation. That the flexors and extensors can really coordinate to lengthen and shorten. But he did a lot on weight shift first, didn't he? Yeah, he didn't start to go straight for this. He did a lot on, I can organise both of my hands over this leg. Yeah? I'm going to find all these ways that I can... And he's doing it not by making this the weight-bearing leg in the lesson. He's showing you how it can get light, that it's got the possibilities of getting out of its habitual anti-gravity response. So he's shifting all the weight to the other leg. Why would you get cramp? Yeah, why? What's cramp? Muscles not having their full range of lengthening and shortening. That they're working in a short one position. That's what cramp is. a muscle staying at one length and continuing to try and shorten, huh? Because it doesn't have the reciprocal relationship to its opposite muscle. No? Is it something in your back? You know, so that what I'm trying to do there, I'm getting there, and this is where the big picture is, so that I'm getting there by just thinking of my feet. Huh? But what's going to let all that get mobile is that my wrist is soft and my forearm is soft. But if I'm going in like this and I've lost that because I've tighten this, what's it going to do? These are going to work. I'm going to give myself cramp there. No? But that, you know, they're really good questions. Why does someone get cramp? And it's simply telling you those muscles are not getting their full range between length and shorten. So the other thing, you know, the whole talk he did, and if you're interested in the book that he was talking about with the orthopaedic surgeon, it's a book we all had as physios when I trained, which was Cyriax. Cyriax, C-Y-R-I-A-X. And it was this huge tome, cost a fortune. But he was absolutely into manipulation. Yeah, and it is. What is it about when, you know, because he's really, this is where, you know, he's making you think, is manipulation bad? Is it good? What is it that's changed? And he was going to go on to say, you know, I used to think that, and this is where he's always ready to change his ideas based on evidence. And that's what we have to be too. Huh? That I always thought, oh, it was the disc or something. And then this guy's actually presented this information that there's something holding there, that gentle manipulation. What else did, you know, I don't know, trigger points. Oh my God, what do you think you're doing when people are going into trigger points and needling? They're usually tearing tissue a little bit, microscopically levels, but not in a bad way. But is it something in the fascia that's just got, and it's in the brain as well, that's just got so stuck there that I can go in and just change that little pattern and everything else goes, oh, I remember. And this is where he was brilliant. He was always open to going, what's out there that works? And especially with someone like Cyriax, because Feldenkrais is a scientist, has he carried out an investigation into this? Where's he getting his information from? So have a lie down on your backs. Just for a sec, and then we're going to move on. And just play around with any of those ideas that we were just talking about. What does how we hold our feet in this position tell us about our standing? Maybe you begin to able to feel as you interlace your feet. Is there a difference in it? Maybe there is a slight shift in where my weight goes if my right toe's forward or my left toe's forward. Does my back respond? Does it actually understand that these asymmetrical movements of my feet are asking for asymmetrical movements in my low back, asking my back muscles to respond? That my hips are going to be slightly different if I've got my big toe forward, my right big toe forward, or my left big toe forward. Can I begin to feel this sense of subtlety? Or am I just into, hold everything in the middle? Because this is what he's looking for, these subtle weight shifts. He's already let you shift your weight a long way in the previous lesson. find lots of different ways of shifting your weight. And as we get more organised and our spine softens, or it's not the spine, it's the muscles that hold it, soften, can change their shape a little bit more. The big muscles can give up more of their work, that we can begin to find these subtleties in that our spine can stay adaptable and malleable. And really feel the difference if you hold that symmetry. So that if you're up in sitting or you're going to roll up to sitting, with this asymmetry, would you roll exactly up the midline of your spine? Or would there be maybe something there, because we've already done all that weight shift, that maybe you can still use both arms, but there's a little off to one side. Or if someone hasn't got enough length, that you could let them go off one side. So that as soon as we interlace, we're asymmetrical. It's going to allow one shoulder to come a little bit more forward. It's going to have an influence on our pelvis, on our hips, our shoulders. And then feel the difference if you don't interlace your fingers. Sorry, if you don't interlace your feet, if they're just more symmetrical, which is what he started to get to a little bit. But what's the difference? Because that's a more symmetrical movement. But not to get people lost, that they still have to come up symmetrically. Some of us have still got to do, we've got to be open to letting the movement go where we want. So we're never stuck in a straight line. But where am I going? Where can I shift my weight to? And come up to standing again. And just even after doing that, sorry, to sitting, sorry, and just put your feet together. Has anything changed? Even after that simple movement. And it doesn't matter if you're a little bit more on one sit bone or the other, or how do you find that your feet can both be weight bearing, that there's more of my foot is starting to be able to find the ground. So this work is never about that I have to be symmetrical. My function can be symmetrical, but we're not symmetrical. And so I can deviate off a little bit. As I always say to people, you know, when I get tired, I limp, but I do it very elegantly. Because I am including all of me in my image. And it's a big thing with people who come in and they want to be perfect. No? They want to be symmetrical. This leg must be the same as this leg, or this shoulder's got to be the same as this shoulder. Okay, up to standing. So again, he's generalizing all the time. If I find more places that I can roll over, does that let my middle soften, become more available? because I'm going into places that aren't my habit, finding new places. How does that influence where the weight is on my feet? How have I generalized the learning from the floor up into standing? What's more integrated? What am I looking for? Have a walk around. So we can talk more about the integration tomorrow, but I'd really encourage you just to talk to each other. What do I think integration is? Okay. So now if we go back and we start to, after going through that ATM, maybe looking at some of the ideas that are being embedded into that seeming lesson where you're playing with your fingers and toes to roll up. So if we think now about the prone lesson we've been doing, what do you think, what's that about? What are we giving people the opportunity to learn from that prone lesson? So what's that showing us, though, this prone lesson? Mm-hmm. What's it giving someone the opportunity to find out about? Why would we give someone this lesson? What's there a possibility of experiencing in this lesson? Yeah.
Asking me that question, and this morning when I was looking for the people walking, I saw people shorten in one side and more lengthen in the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking maybe I will, but my question was, do I exacerbate the shorten and do what the person is doing?
Yeah.
Or I just I propose the new one, like, okay, that was my question, just because I saw people working like this, no? More, and I said, if I show them that they can lengthen this part and shorten the other, they will be more.
More what?
I was not symmetrical. Is the
No, you're not looking for symmetrical. I can hear that.
No, it's the developmental how we began to move in this way, in this, and then using the opposite. I don't remember now. It's when you use the diagonals.
Mm-hmm. So let's open it out a little bit. Yeah. You're thinking someone always shortens on one side and lengthens on the other. Huh? They're walking. They're managing. You know, I actually love coming to Box Hill, and I don't know why it's Box Hill, but the number of people with really profound difficulties that you see walking around here, and I'm just continually blown away by how they manage it. You know, they're just great learners. So, but what is it? Why do I want him to get? For what reason? Do I want him to get short on one side or long on the other? So let's think function quicker. What do you want someone to understand from this lesson? Is this lesson about shortening and lengthening? It's about transferring the weight onto the standing leg. Yeah? So there's something really fundamental about that. I'm transferring the weight, keeping the pelvis free, the head's getting lighter. So everything's getting lighter. He went further than that with Elizabeth. Yeah? But, you know, in terms of what we could play with, if we could get someone all organised over one side, and we're going to show them that we want more and more of themselves to be able to get to the ground. And we're going to do it with most people through lengthening this side. There's many ATMs as you get more organised where you're going to shorten and still weight bear. It's going to take your head somewhere different. It's a whole different way of moving through space. This is about what? Where do we want this to be sitting? Yeah. What's the relationship that we're setting up between here and the pelvis and this foot? We want them to be lined up. No. Is it contralateral? It's on the standing leg. And can I begin to find that I can be on my standing leg and I've got more options? That if by getting along on my standing leg, by really shifting my weight, that I've got possibilities. Maybe some of you felt that at the end of the lesson after that we did this morning, so that you could come on to your right leg, but it wasn't just about standing like that, but you had options about how you could be on that standing leg. So are we helping someone to really clarify not just that that's great, but is it something about the length and finding the ground that they can find there's more possibilities there, standing on one leg? So there's a lot about weight shift. How do we keep shifting the weight? And again, as what we've said is we've been more interested in the length, getting the weight more over this hip. Because that's what standing on one leg is. It's, I have to get this over this, not this. And I'm going to organise that by getting them to be able to organise over this hip joint. Because if they're there and we haven't yet got this lightness, that's what I've shown them. Because they haven't found this mobility through their hip and pelvis. This mobility to really begin to shift their weight and to take it more and more into the centre. So have a stand up and just feel, how could you feel that on yourselves? And hopefully it'll be a bit easier after the lesson we did this morning. We're using a different principle here though, aren't we? So this morning we got the weight off the leg. Here we're doing a lot to get the weight onto the leg. And we're organising it to get easier and easier by this side getting softer and softer. So we've got a standing side and a mobile side. But standing is never rigid. It's soft and it's adaptable and and yet for some people who come in, this is their first approximation that something can be a bit softer, but maybe they haven't really got their hip underneath them yet. What's the next approximation that they might need to understand? C7. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this whole area, the first rib. Yeah. Yeah, because how would you stand on one leg if that didn't come over your hip joint? Yeah? What have you got to do? Hold your breath. You can see. Yeah? You can be there by all means, but it's not quality. You haven't got options there. What do you think? Because the thing is, once you've got your support, once I know that, then I can do this. I can move all of this. But what is the fundamental thing I need to understand first to let that happen? Yeah? So if you stand on one leg and tighten this a little bit, just go over there and tighten it. We should all be pretty good at it. How easy is it for you to swing forward over your hip joint or to make a circle around your hip joint? So what are these relationships we must understand before we can build on them? Think of the first rib. Think of C7 and the first rib. Yeah? Why is your pelvis important? Tell me more. Why is your pelvis important?
Because the pelvis has this power capacity within it. It's like a big lumpy bone.
And how do you get that? How do you know someone's got power in their pelvis? What do you have to organise to give someone power in their pelvis?
Mobility and stability.
Show me. This is what...
Yes.
So you're still on your feet there though, aren't you?
Mm.
Yeah?
Mm.
So what would be a movement that would show me you had power in your pelvis?
I guess if it's initiating from the pelvis, it would be something, if you like to punch or something, you'd...
Yeah, pelvis is free over his base of support. Huh? So what happens if you tighten your right leg? How free are you then in your pelvis?
Minutely.
Not. Yeah, you're going to get stuck, aren't you? So the pelvis can only be free when everything else around it is out of its way. Huh? When everything else around it has got light. It's like when you watch babies, you can see they're spiralling from their pelvis and their arms and legs and everything just know where to go. They're not having to think, where's my knee? Where's my foot? Huh? Because they've organised this lightness and ease. So it's the same here. How can my arms be light if this isn't free? And as I said, these are really big questions. And what I'd say to you, Narayan, is keep investigating. What happens if I don't know how to get that over my leg? What does it do to my organisation?
It's just interesting because usually, I've been thinking about head, and it's like, but it's like C7 or it's like a junction for the head, but also these shoulders.
Yeah, this is a huge junction. This is a huge junction. There's another ripper in here as well. that gets influenced by what we're doing with the top and the bottom. Okay, so if this is about showing someone that they can really easily bring their weight onto one leg, they can really be organised, what might that be useful for? Why might we want to show someone this? Keep going. This isn't answers. I want you to think about why might this be a useful lesson for someone. It's always about including all of them in the image. That's always going to make a difference, isn't it? It's always about having the freedom between their pelvis, that their pelvis and this area know each other, that they're responsive. It's always about flow through the system. But there's something more that we're doing about weight shift here. Some really fundamental arm, head, and we're getting the head light. This is just so important for people, that their head can get light and these teleceptors can get free. Because then we've got possibilities of adapting. You know, I had to laugh. I think Di was reading that to me, that Roger Federer was talking about, that maybe, what did he say though? He's a little bit smoother. Everything's a bit smoother. Maybe that's why I'm still playing. And other people are all succumbing to injury. And that's the question. How's he organising himself? This is possible. What do you see in him? What is it that he understands about integration? So what are you looking for that gives you that? So in terms of this, you're going to get a new partner. Do the same thing, because I've really learnt the more you let you practice it, the better. But you're going to think about first, so I know that maybe this could be something about coming more onto my weight-bearing leg. Yeah. And what does that give you? Does coming more onto my weight-bearing leg give me more places that I can put my other leg? No? Is that maybe a big part of it? That I've got all these possibilities now if I can. Whereas if I'm not really onto that leg, how free is my other leg to step in different places? Can you feel that on yourselves? No. If you don't really find that really standing on one leg, how free can the other leg be compared to when you find that line? So remember all this he was doing with Elizabeth? No? This ability that that leg could go anywhere because she's finding how to weight bear more clearly. So all of a sudden she can walk backwards. Because there's something in organising one leg, but then she can. But it's the freedom through here, through the head. So I'm getting off track. So you're going to work out, what would I investigate in the person at the beginning of this lesson? What would I look at? And what would I look at the end? Yeah. It can be in standing, it can be in sitting, it can, whatever you like, but have something that you're going to look at. If you think that this lesson's about being able to stand on one leg, having lightness and freedom in your head, the other leg is really free. What could you look at the beginning of the lesson that you could come back to at the end of the lesson? Off you go. New partner. You've got half an hour.